This episode of the Gentleman Scofflaw podcast is brought to you by Patreon and the Gentleman Scofflaw merchandise page. Go to gentlemanscofflaw.com. In the menu, click the support or shop links to help support the show.
You are listening to the Gentleman Scofflaw podcast. Listener beware.
Rise and shine, the liquor store is open. I ain't got time for moping. I best be on my way. Well, I still got time to save my reputation. Time to go day drinking in this dirty little town.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Gentleman Scofflaw podcast. I'm your host, Jordan Crowder. Co-hosting with me in person, as per usual, is the Donovan Fowler.
Well, not really in person.
Not really in person. It's just by force of habit. And you know, it's not whatever. By force of habit. The podcast for the Rebel and the Renaissance Man. I always forget to say that with the title of the show. Podcasting 101, you're supposed to do that. You know what? We'll get into asking how you're doing, Donovan, but we got to do this at the top of the show because we got two new patrons this week. Then we want to thank them. We got Brian Batronis joining at the Scofflaw level, and Justin Hack, two A's in Hack. I'm going to call him the Double Renaissance Man level because he our highest level is at the Renaissance Man, and he paid twice as much as that. So wow. Thank you for that. Thanks for being a double Renaissance Man.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. From the bottom of our glasses.
From the bottom of our glasses. Yeah, if you guys want to become a supporter of the show, of course it helps. It just helps us to get this thing off the ground, and especially with a lot of new changes we're making with video and stuff. So thank you for doing that, and go ahead to patreon.com/gentscofflaw if you want to find out how you could be a supporter. How you doing, man?
I'm doing fine. You know, I'm healthy,
Yep.
Got family around, and basically just enjoying life a little bit slowed down. You know,
I can see you're really living it up right now. For those who aren't watching the video, Donovan is in full-on tuxedo garb.
You know, I woke up this morning and I said to my butler, I think it's time to up the game a little bit. Yeah. Stop bringing me my normal tweed suit that I wear in the winter months. Let's go dinner jacket and black tie from now on. So he helped me into my jacket and brushed off the tops of the shoulders, and I felt very much at home.
Well, our guest later will very much approve it. Our style guy, Tanner Guzy.
Yeah, I forgot to mention, I was inspired. In reality, I was inspired by Tanner Guzy. I was like, well, if we're having the style guy on, why not, style it up? Actually, it's funny because I'm here at the family house in Kansas City because why go back to LA to just live in a tiny apartment like you are?
I know.
I commend you, by the way. But anyways, I have this tuxedo in my closet from when I was in high school because we all got fitted for tuxedos at this Jesuit high school, and we graduated in them. I took Angie Peterson to prom in this tuxedo.
Oh, nice.
She was, real heartbreaker, that Angie Peterson.
Oh, no. Is that a real name, or are you making one up?
No, that's real. Actually, she's probably married now. She was a great girl. I mean, she was very nice. I don't mean to disparage her in any way. But no, I doubt she's listening. But
maybe
those were some good times back in the day. But yes,
good times.
Yes, indeed. But it still fits.
Yeah, so, it looks good. It's good. Shoulders are a little wider than.
I was a football player. What do you want me to say, Jordan? Okay, we had to wear our pads everywhere. It was like you never knew when you were going to get jumped by one of the opposing teams.
That's true. You never know. Speaking of, you got a martini there. We got to do a little bit of housekeeping there. I forgot about that.
Do some housekeeping.
So what do you got there, Donovan?
I have a I guess this would be considered a wet martini because I think I put a little bit more extra dry vermouth in it than you would typically.
So extra dry means it's wet?
I didn't make the rules. Okay. I don't make the rules here. I'm not in management. No, but it's technically, I guess we'll just go say it's a dirty martini garnished with 3 olives and made with our very own Trader Joe's Art of the Still vodka, which, dude, if you're looking for a good deal on vodka and gin, Trader Joe's has this new brand called Art of the Still.
Really?
And looks classy, super cheap, and good for making all sorts of drinks with, which I've been experimenting over the course of this time away from things. So yeah, it's been great.
That's awesome. I've tried there's another gin they do. It's like Admiral Joseph or something. I've gotten that a lot over the years and liked it. I don't know if you've had that before.
They have some. I think I know the one you're talking about because it has a guy on it in a uniform.
Yeah.
That sounds familiar.
I think it's just repackaged Beefeater is what I've read. But
it might be. I mean, well, yeah. I mean, or it's either repackaged or they did it in the same distillery, but which is like Trader Joe's bourbon. Their like Kentucky bourbon, I think, comes from the Buffalo Trace distillery, but it's not Buffalo Trace. I mean, you know it by the taste, but it's for the deal. It's like, well, sure, it's not Buffalo Trace, but it's $15 and it does the trick.
Does the trick. Speaking of which, I've got a kind of a poor man's Moscow Mule because I didn't have any limes. So it's just it's actually not a Moscow Mule. It's a Kentucky Mule is what I've got here.
With a little bit of, let me guess, Evan Williams.
A little bit of Evan Williams. It's all I have left in the house right now. That's the one thing with quarantine is we've gone through all the liquor.
All you have left. That's all you need.
I know. And right here, I am smoking my little Baracchini pocket pipe. And in it, I have some Aaron Gobra pipe tobacco. I'll get that. Oh,
yeah, that's the spirit. That's the spirit. Even that was more of a Scottish accent. I apologize to all of our Irish listeners.
Yeah, they're all going to be offended by that.
Yeah, Jeez. Yeah. While you're lighting that up, man, I should have stocked up on cigars. I was a fool. I went to a cigar shop called Diebels, who actually we may be interviewing one of the guys who's one of the clerks there because he was very, very dapper gent with much knowledge on all things tobacco. But yeah, Diebels Cigar Shop, which is kind of a mainstay here in Kansas City, over the plaza. They have great deals on. My brothers and I smoked up a couple of cigars that were pretty good for the price. And they came from all these, like we were talking about with distilleries doing cheaper versions of whatever they do. Yeah. They came from like the Punch Factory or, the Macanudo Factory, which is probably more of a common thing. We can actually talk to the guys about
seconds, they call them or whatever, factory seconds from those factories.
Something like that. Yeah. But ultimately they had the Diebels label on them. So it was like you're paying, really, good price for by good price. I mean, like you weren't getting ripped off.
Yeah. They're like $3 a stick or something probably. Or,
yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, it was like awesome. $3.50 a stick. But you were like, well, if it has this company, if it has the shop's label on it, they must believe in it. Yeah. And I took a gamble and it was good. I mean, it was good stuff. So I wish I had been more present at the time and bought, a handful, but
are they not considered an essential business?
I don't think so. Well, actually, much to my chagrin. But it sucks, man. I mean, it's like, you think like I can't be going through nicotine withdrawal.
Well, they say the cigar and pipe boom online has been doing well because people are ordering a lot online right now because they got all this time to smoke them. But I can send you some if you're not worried about getting my coronavirus or my lack. Who knows if I have it or not? Nobody knows, right?
Keep all your California germs on that side of the coast, please. Yeah. We don't want them here in the Midwest. No, but I appreciate that. Yeah, but I'll actually, you know what? I'll look into. I'd rather patronize in the best sense. these shops online because
there's
they're
a
great.
guy named Tim Swanson at Cigars Daily, which he's actually going to be a guest on the show. We've been talking with him about that. He does a bunch of great YouTube videos on cigars, and he does I think it is a daily video. I mean, that was called Cigars Daily, and he does his own kind of like what you're talking about. He does his own kind of house blends and stuff that are really affordable and really good. So you should check them out online. A little plug for them. They didn't pay us to say this. I'm just a fan.
Jordan says as he quietly takes money under the table from somebody standing right off camera. But yeah, how you been doing, man? How's everything going over on the West Coast?
I've been pretty good. Work has slowed down a little bit, which is kind of the case for everybody right now, it seems. Watching a lot of stuff on TV, trying to get some screenplays going now that I got a little bit of more downtime.
Oh yeah. Yeah, seriously.
How about you? Are you watching anything special on TV?
So let's see. It being the Easter season, I actually it's been a long time. Typically, so every year at Easter, I'll rotate like a movie that is seasonal. So in other words, typically it's like Ben-Hur, The Robe. Have you ever seen that one? Or Jesus of Nazareth, Passion of the Christ, something like that. And this year, because, I had a little bit more time on my hands and I was with people, I just decided, I was like, okay, I'm just going to watch all of them. I watched Prince of Egypt. I watched Ten Commandments. Right. I watched Ben-Hur. I watched Quo Vadis. I watched The Robe, Jesus of Nazareth, Passion of the Christ, pretty much every biblical epic of that era. And it was really interesting comparing them, kind of seeing the timeline of it occurred to me, obviously the comparison story-wise isn't quite right, but these were with Westerns, kind of the trend of the time. So in other words, superhero movies are kind of the trend for the last 10 years. For the 50s, it was Quo Vadis, this one huge biblical epic about a Roman soldier in early times, Christian period of Rome with Nero, came out and it made a ton of money, and it kicked off all these other movies that ended up kind of culminating with Ben-Hur. But anyways, yeah, it's been fun watching those because you look at them and you're you can see some of the effects, some of the holes maybe in the effects, or maybe the storytelling is a little outdated in the way that the actors, are presenting and everything. But overall, it's damn, I mean, they really did a fantastic job of doing an epic. I mean, with Hollywood backlots or going to Italy and stuff. So it's been really cool kind of watching that stuff. I've really enjoyed that.
That's awesome. I should have done more of that. I've been waiting to watch a lot of
shame
stuff
on you.
With Lacey, because she still actually has to go in right now. But
she's still going into work?
Yeah. It's an entertainment
kind
industry.
Of a blessing and a curse.
Yeah, it is both. But it's an entertainment industry kind of loophole where entertainment is considered media and media is considered essential. So
gotta keep the troops entertained, you know what I mean?
Exactly. So although I think the law is there for members of the press covering the virus and the policies and the laws around it, and all that stuff. But so I guess it's both been a blessing, but it also would have been nice to both be able to work from home together for a little while. But I watched Gone with the Wind for the first time. I've never seen that before.
I have a funny Gone with the Wind story when you're done. Okay. By the way,
that, and then we've been playing a lot of Lacey and I, Lady Scofflaw and I, we've been playing a lot of backgammon. Big fans of that game now. But what was your Gone with the Wind story?
Well, first off, let me just say backgammon, you got me onto that. And because I had done backgammon years and years ago. We got a backgammon set. It was a Lord of the Rings themed backgammon set.
That's crazy. I didn't know that existed.
2003. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Dude, my family was such Lord of the Rings fans. Yeah. I mean, we still are, but back when the movies were coming out, we have every version of games with Lord of the Rings theme, Risk, backgammon, checkers, whatever. It was funny, but yeah, backgammon, man, it's great. It is the perfect game because it's so laid back. It's relatively easy to learn. Like I'm the kind of person, I hate board games because I hate having things explained to me in short amount of time that I'm supposed to actually remember.
Yeah.
And with backgammon, I'm just like, okay, I can just learn this kind of as I go. It's fairly, I don't know, just the way it plays out, it doesn't stress me out. And you were actually saying that it would be like the perfect game to take to a cigar lounge, or like a bar, and like just set it up and just like kind of smoke and like drink and kind of have a good time.
Well, apparently they're really common in the Middle East and a lot of hookah lounges and coffee shops and stuff.
That makes a lot of sense.
Because it originates in present day Iraq, I guess, is where it started. They say it's the oldest board game. It's like 5,000 years old.
Wow.
So
Shout
it's even
Saddam had his own like life-size backgammon set before we took him out.
Exactly. Life-size. But what I like about it, I think, is first of all, the aesthetics of it are really cool. The boards are really beautiful, and it almost has that kind of, especially almost like a pool snooker table kind of look to a lot of them that have that vintage kind of style. But the game itself, to me, is kind of got some of the strategy of chess, but it moves fast like checkers. And then you've got the chance element to it, which is like more like a card game or something, kind of all blended in. So I don't know.
And also you can pack it up. Like you can just most of the backgammon sets come in like a suitcase.
Yeah, I've got one here actually.
Yeah. Yeah, my dad's really into it. It's his favorite game. Yeah, exactly. Like you could like easily like just take that on a camping trip, take it to a bar or whatever. But yeah, it's good that way. Okay, so before I forget, the Gone with the Wind story. So obviously Gone with the Wind is one of those epics that was like a huge deal when it came out, and it's remained a huge deal since it came out. It's one of like the, regardless of how you feel about it politically, or historically, it's sort of like you have to acknowledge it as one of the epics of all time.
Yeah.
So anyways, my roommate and I, it was Saturday night and we were watching the USC game, and we had, done away with maybe a 6-pack and a half of beer during the USC game. We had been grilling all that time and stuff, and we were having a good time. It was a really good game. So I love, after like football games, I love to keep the ball rolling entertainment wise.
Yeah.
So like after the Super Bowl, it's always been a tradition of like, let's see what like good action movies on Netflix, and let's go ahead and just watch that and make milkshakes and just have a good time into the wee hours in the morning. So in this case, we stumbled upon Wizard of Oz on television, and we finished off the second 6-pack, and I was going over the film history of Wizard of Oz, and I said, oh yeah, this came out about the same time as Gone with the Wind. Yeah. My roommate was like, well, I've never seen Gone with the Wind. And I grew up in a household with 4 sisters who all like loved Clark Gable and Vivian Leigh and all this stuff, and they read the book and all that. So I was like, you've never seen Gone with the Wind? So I ran up to my room, got the DVD. I was like, okay, let's watch it. Because I hadn't seen it in probably 10 years. So I was like curious to see myself. So I had a bottle of Aviator gin that I had taken to a gin tasting party. You may have been there. The gin tasting party, you remember that?
I remember going to a whiskey bourbon tasting or a Scotch tasting party. It might be the same people, but I might have been absent.
It was the same people, but that night we did gin, and I've never really quite experimented with gin before. I think maybe I had like a mini bottle of Beefeater the first time I ever drank, but like other than that, I was never really a gin guy.
Yeah.
But I taste Aviator gin, and I'm like, this is actually really good, and I love the aesthetic of the bottle and stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm watching the movie and I'm like, wow, this movie is like, it's huge and like all this stuff. I'm having a good time. And we're mixing the gin with this orange liqueur, which was not being properly, it wasn't being properly proportioned to how much gin was in the glass. Let's put it that way.
Not the right ratios.
This was like one of the first times I really realized that if you're ever drinking and you start to think like, you know what, I'm doing okay. Like, I'm just sitting here, having my drink. Like, I'm feeling good. You're buzzed, all this stuff. That's the point of where you should really just slow down. Like, you should not don't chase that high, in other words. So, but me being, young and dumb, I did that very thing, and I kept going back to the gin bottle and just like was like, oh, this is so good. And then next morning, let's just skip over the night. The whole night was kind of we made it to the middle of the movie, and he went to bed, and I went to the bathroom. Let's just put it that way. And dude, the next morning I had the most bone cracking hangover of my life. I remember laying on the couch and just shivering. It was so bad. Like, it was just one of those, like, you just feel like you have the worst version of malaria. And anyways, so my roommate comes up and he's like, "Hey, you ready to go to the Bills game?" And I'm just like, I had completely forgotten that we had tickets to the Bills game. So cut to me sitting on the subway, rocking myself back and forth, like sunglasses on. I'm just like trying not to. My main imperative at that point was just don't throw up all over the place. And luckily I made it to the Bills game. Everything was, eventually things, faded away. But yeah, be careful when mixing gin with Gone with the Wind. It's
a long movie, story. A lot of refills.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, if you're gonna crack open a bottle during an epic like that, maybe wait till the intermission.
Yeah, exactly. I will say though, like, for as long as the movie is, it moves really fast. Like, you don't feel like it's
well
long.
paced.
Yeah, it definitely.
And Clark Gable, for all of his personal faults, which I've been reading about lately, I was diving into old sordid tales of Hollywood, and his name came up quite often. He was a great masculine star of that era, and his version of the name of the character is Rhett Butler. Yeah, is just it's just classic. You're just like, oh yeah, I want to be that guy.
Yeah,
because he's tough, but he's also he's a gentleman scofflaw. I mean, honestly, if we're gonna be honest, like if we were to pick a guy from film, it would either be Humphrey Bogart or it'd probably be Clark Gable from that movie.
Yeah, for sure. Minus the racism or implied racism.
Well, yeah, exactly. He's the kind of guy, like, in the beginning, like you kind of look at him and you're like, yeah, you're a little ahead of the time, aren't you? Like you're just in this, you're in all of this just for profit, which I guess is considered racist, but ultimately, he doesn't, like, you can tell, like, he's not an ideologue at the beginning of the movie. He's basically like, yeah, I like to make money, and I have certain set of principles, but he's one of those, like, smuggler rogues. Kind of fun.
Modern rogue. All right, let's go to a little segment we like to call
Listener Mail.
All right, now's the part of the show where we interact with you, the listener. Where can people interact with us, Donovan?
Twitter, Instagram.
I like how every time you have to pause and remember.
Social media is not my game, my friend. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. You can leave a review for us on iTunes. You can leave a review for us on YouTube.
If you give us YouTube comments, we can read those too.
Yeah, fill out those YouTube comments, please. Yeah. But yeah, overall, I would say those are probably the main ways. On top of that, you can also call the number, and you can leave us a voice message if you if you're not a weirdo.
If you're not a weirdo, call.
We seem to attract the weirdos.
It seems
these
to
days,
be only weirdos on the voice messages.
Yeah, but, which they keep things light, and fun. As long as they're not knocking on your back door in the middle of the night.
Exactly. So if you want to leave us a voicemail, you can call the number man81scoff. Right now we've got some iTunes reviews. What does that first one say there, Donovan?
Hell yeah. I totally forgot to pull up the show notes.
All right,
so
I'll
give me
start.
A second
I'll
here.
start and you can do the second one.
Hey, to be fair, I was in full screen this entire time. I was giving my undivided attention to you.
Exactly.
So,
what we need is a prompter in front of my camera so I can remember to look at the camera. This whole thing is still new to me. But so we've got
you're supposed to know you doing?
All right, I'm going to read this now because you're starting to break up a little bit. I'll let it catch up while I read this. It says, fun show from some fun show of what? No. Fun
What?
show from some fun folks. From Feisty321, he says, great conversation, kind of thought-provoking sometimes. An all-around good time. Laugh okay? Question mark?
Is this like did you pay somebody from Nigeria to write this?
I may have.
Oh,
Yeah, I like that. Laugh okay? Question mark? I'm not completely sure what that means, but thank you for that. We appreciate that. We appreciate the 5-star review regardless.
Absolutely.
What does that next one say there, Donovan?
Wait a minute. Oh, wait a minute. Here we go. Okay, so we have 5 stars coming from Mr. Fredro. Okay. These gentlemen and Scofflaw, as parentheses, bring the goods each episode, often discussing topics I didn't even know I'd be interested. I didn't even know I'd be interested in. Fill a glass, smoke them if you got them, and enjoy. Keep up the fine work, gents. Gosh, if I could only read these reviews, would go a lot smoother. Thank you very much, Mr. Fredro.
Thank you, Mr. Fredro. I appreciate
Fredro.
that.
Yeah. My head was in Godfather Part 2 when I was reading that. Mr. Fredro. You broke my heart, Fredro.
We try to find subjects that'd be interesting. I feel like there's always subjects that you don't know about that could be interesting as long as you have interesting people to hear it from. And so we try to have interesting guests to talk about different subjects. And it's always good to be a Renaissance man, have a little bit of knowledge of everything, right?
Absolutely.
All right. This next review says, too good, the pootie, too good. This is the title.
I'll get on board with that. That sounds like a solid... a solid, review.
Says Beyond the Mat podcast is the one that said that. He says, love this show. It's so funny, wicked and weird.
Wicked and weird.
Wicked and weird. Maybe he's from Boston. Think he's from Boston?
Boston. It's wicked weird. You got to listen to this podcast, right? It's wicked weird.
It's wicked. All right. Let's go to a little voicemail here we have on our answering machine.
Hi guys, things have devolved a little bit, but I'm safe. I wanted you to know that everything's okay. Just tell your family every day how much they mean to you, okay?
Oh.
Just promise me that. I hope you're having fun scoffing laws. I miss you guys. I'll touch base soon.
All right, so that was obviously from Johnny Boy, but I don't know what's happening in the background there.
I think he's in an iPhone factory and they're shooting the workers who are trying to escape.
Oh, I didn't know there was an iPhone factory in Canada, but maybe
well, who knows? Maybe he got deported to China.
Maybe.
No, but actually, honestly, if I were to guess, if I had to pin my life on it, I'd say, was he at the shooting range?
Maybe.
Which also sounds very uncharacteristic for Canada, but maybe what happened last time was he got caught by those Canadian fellows that you always talk about, those law enforcement fellows.
The RCMP.
And, the RCMP. He got caught by them, taken to interrogation, beaten to like a bloody pulp, but because he has a good sense of humor and he can crack some jokes, he started to become friends with them over time. So, they started giving him cigarettes and, some back and forth, and he maybe gives them a little bit, BS information.
He's like that guy in Vietnam that pretended that he was dumb and then remembered all the names of the prisoners of war. And then once
I don't know who you're referring to, but yeah, that like kind of like that definitely that prisoner guard dynamic kind of thing. And maybe every once in a while they take him to the shooting range just to blow off some steam.
Yeah, because they can trust him.
That's the narrative in my head.
Yeah, that's what's happening. Well, John, we hope you're staying safe, and hopefully we'll hear another update soon. You know what? Let's take a quick break, and we'll be back with Tanner Guzy of Masculine Style. Give us some tips about being at home in quarantine and how you can make the best of it. Also, some cool, probably some style tips from the man himself. Men or women, this one's for you. Let me take a second to talk to you about GoRuck. Now, you've heard us on this show talk about their awesome endurance events, which are, great for fitness and team building. But of course, they are known for their amazing gear. Some of the best gear in the world, actually. I myself own a GR1 rucksack for all my rucking and training. I also have one of their 30-pound ruck plates, which is so convenient because I could just drop it in the laptop compartment on my bag, and I have a weighted ruck. It's super cool. But one of my all-time favorite things that they offer are their sandbags. Now, if you've never trained with a sandbag, you're in for a treat. I love that you can keep it in the trunk of your car and take it to the park, and you have a gym anywhere. Ever try doing sandbag man makers with 60 pounds? I mean, you get a fun and very hard training session in really quickly. It's a big bag of suck in all the right ways. Now, even if you're not in the rucking, they have tons of sleek apparel for the outdoors in addition to their gear that is tough as nails and built to military standards. Also, their apparel and gear offer their scars a lifetime warranty, so you buy the item once and that's it. You're set for life. But you know what the greatest thing is about GoRuck? All of it is made in the good old USA, and by Special Forces veterans, mind you. It doesn't get more badass than that. That's right, America. To check out GoRuck gear, go to gentlemanscofflaw.com/GoRuck, and anything you buy through that link helps support the show. That's gentlemanscofflaw.com/GoRuck. Whether it's for your fitness regimen, your outdoor lifestyle, or just, a great bag for everyday carry, you're going to want to check them out. GoRuck, built in the USA. All right, Donovan, I'm excited to have this guest. This actually was, I think, our second guest ever on the Gentleman's Scofflaw podcast.
Yeah, back in the day.
He is a men's style expert and also just kind of, I would say a life expert, because he puts out a lot of content there that is helpful for self-improvement. Tanner Guzy, thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me back on. I didn't realize I was your second guest. That's awesome.
Yeah. You were on really early on when we were, gosh, that was 2017, probably around this time.
It's been a while. Yeah.
That's crazy.
I'm glad to be back. That was such a fun show, and so I'm glad to be back.
Well, thanks for doing it. What you've been doing, I saw a video you posted recently that was super helpful. It was called How to Survive Family Quarantine. And you had some really great tips on there on just kind of like dealing with this kind of weird situation we're in where everybody's at home together all the time and having to work from home and being around people you love maybe a little too much all the time. So I just wanted to kind of go through some of the stuff you talked about in that video and expand upon it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, first of all, how is your quarantine going? I mean, it's been a couple of weeks since you posted that. Has it changed for you, or?
Yeah, I mean, we're 5-6 weeks in now. I think for us, we started taking it seriously when the NBA when they shut down that Jazz game, and they were just like, "This is not happening." Right?
Yeah.
I remember being out at a restaurant with some friends, and it was like, all of a sudden they're getting emails from their employers like, we're going to start implementing work from home and everything. And so, however long that's been, 5 years, it feels like at this point, right?
Yeah.
I think 5 or 6 weeks. The thing that's interesting about this for us is that I already work from home and we already homeschool our kids. Okay. And so our lives are like 90% normal compared to what they would have been otherwise. I've had to get creative with some business stuff in order to keep revenue where I want it to be with that. And my kids are starting to go absolutely insane because it used to be that we would just send them out the door after they were done with school, and then we wouldn't see them for a few hours because they were either out adventuring on their own, or when their friends would get home from school, they would be playing in friends' backyards and stuff like that. And now they just do the adventuring on their own, but their friends, nobody's kids are playing with each other. And so that's probably the only way that our lives have really been affected is my kids. I'm at the point where I miss my kids' friends because my kids have good friends, but like it's at this point where that's for us, thankfully. And I'm so grateful because we haven't dealt with death. I haven't had my income just completely die off. It's not like my wife was also working a full-time job and we now have to juggle. How am I going to work while she's working? So many people have it so much harder than we do. Yeah. And so for us, it's been a pretty good time with minimal sacrifice. So we've been really blessed that way.
That's really good to hear. Yeah, that not a lot of people get to be in that situation, but for a lot of people do have to work from home nowadays, whether it's for themselves or they have a business or that they're working for a company and they've moved, to telecommuting. So what are some tips you have kind of for working at home, for trying to get into that groove?
So the two biggest things that I can recommend, and there's stuff that we'll be able to flesh out even beyond that, but the first thing is you need to be able to have a separate space in which you can get work done. And a lot of that involves mental triggers as far as like you clock in and you clock out, and you're able to think about, I'm in work mode. And so much of it is for you, and so much of it also is for your family. They need to be able to recognize that, oh, cool, just because dad's here doesn't mean that dad's here like it's a prolonged weekend or something else. They need to recognize that physical presence does not equal mental presence, and you need to be able to do the same thing. And one of the easiest ways to be able to do that is physical space. Now, if you're lucky or blessed or whatever it may be that you've got a home office, then that's awesome. Take advantage of that. I know for me, when I first started working for myself 3 years ago, we had 3 kids and we lived in a tiny little 3-bedroom townhome. And my son and I shared a bedroom where half of it was where his bed was and his dresser, and then the other half was where my office was. It was my desk and stuff like that. He wasn't allowed into his own room when I was in there working, and then I couldn't go in and work when he was sleeping and stuff like that. But even just that little like 4x8 space that was mine made it so much easier. I could shut the door. They knew that they couldn't come in. I knew that when I was in there, I could focus on work mode, and I could get involved with that. So that's the first thing, is have some really good physical barriers that are just as important for you mentally as they are for the rest of your family. The second one is, do not try to replicate the way that you work when you're in an office. Because if you're going to be totally honest with yourself, and you should be, you probably spend 3 hours of actual productive time doing work, most of us, and the rest of it is like, oh, I'm going to go talk to the guys, or I'm like getting ready to go to lunch, or I'm winding down from coming back from lunch, or I'm pretending to work but I'm checking Twitter or whatever else. And you don't have to do all of that other stuff. And so don't think that just because you used to clock in from 8 to 5 or whatever it may be, that that's the time that you need to be sequestered in this space. Take advantage of the fact that you can go have lunch with your family. Take advantage of the fact that, like yesterday, I was in between calls with clients, and I spent an hour and a half working out in the yard and actually getting some sun and doing stuff like that. And it wasn't that, oh, I need to save this for Saturday. And so instead of thinking about things from a time perspective, think about them from, what are the tasks that I want to get done? What are the calls that I need to take? What are the things that I need to get checked off my list today? And if that takes 10 hours to get it done, then take the 10 hours. If that takes 2 hours to get it done, then don't feel guilty for mentally clocking out after 2 hours and spending the rest of the day doing stuff that you want to do, doing stuff with your family, getting other stuff done around the house, whatever it may be.
Yeah, those are really good tips, because my wife and I worked from home for years together, and we didn't have our own separate spaces, but our separate rooms. We had our own separate kind of desk kind of spaces, and our way to do that was, whenever we had our headphones on, we're in work mode. Don't talk to us, or don't talk to each other. And then when they're off, you could ask whatever question or follow up with whatever we need to do. And that was super helpful for us. But in the beginning, it was just like, because we're working together, it's like, hey, how's that going? Where are we on that one thing? And you could just and it was like still work, but it was just constant interruptions. And I feel like with even having kids around and stuff, having to establish that, hey, if I'm in my palace, my mind palace, don't bother me.
My kids even have this kind of extra barrier where I have this little soundproof blanket that I can drop down from my wall in front of the door. And it's like, Dad's doing a podcast, so you got to be extra quiet. And so there's even that other kind of extra level that comes with it. Yeah. That
helps too. And I love what you said too about a lot of people, when they work from home, they think they need that 9, create that 9 to 5 kind of boundary, it's kind of like this false boundary that I need to be working constantly from this time to this time. And I did the same thing a couple of years ago, just trying to figure out working from home, where I would make a list of 5 tasks every day that I needed to do. And when I completed those, I was done. And then I would use, the other time to get other stuff done that needed to be, that wasn't necessarily work related, because with me, I could just keep going on, even if there's stuff I got to do tomorrow, I can just keep going on and on and on and on until it's bedtime. And then it's, that's not a healthy way to live.
No, not at all. Especially because so much of it, like for what we do, is I could make the justification that my goofing off on Twitter is work because it's marketing and it's creating content and everything else. And so it can be really easy to spend 12 hours doing that and say, oh, I was working really hard today. And so it is, there's the tendency to either fill up time with unnecessary work, or if you are doing work, to never be able to clock out. And either way, just be task oriented for sure.
Yeah. And it was fun because since we work together from home, we realized, hey, we these are done. We've got the afternoon now. It's LA and everybody's at work on a Tuesday or whatever. We could go to this museum that we've always wanted to go and it won't be packed or whatever. And we just kind of took advantage of that kind of stuff. It's just we can't do that now, but there's other stuff you can do. You can play Boggle or something.
We can go to the laundry room.
Exactly.
Make a field trip out there. An adventure.
So obviously this whole kind of situation, the quarantine situation, has disrupted people's routines. Do you have any suggestions in terms of trying to make some normalcy out of all of this? Because even outside of work, people's lives are just completely disrupted by it.
Yeah, absolutely. The biggest thing that I can say, again, we'll go with two. Okay.
Yeah.
So the first one, to help it feel more normal and help it be established of more of a routine. You guys are going to be surprised to hear this because I'm the style guy, but get dressed every day.
Yeah.
Right. And I thank you. In a full tuxedo.
Nothing less, nothing more. Maybe a smoking jacket would do, but
and your opera pumps and everything else. But really, get dressed every day. And no, that doesn't mean that you need to suit up. But just like we talked about, physical space being able to be it's a trigger, right? Mm-hmm. I'm in work mode or I'm out of work mode or something else. You need to be able to do that with as many triggers as you can set up, and clothing is a huge one. One of the things that I always come back to is, you remember the intro to Mr. Rogers when he comes home and he takes off his shoes and he puts off his other shoes and he takes off one cardigan and puts on another cardigan. And it's really not that different looking at all. Why did you do this? This isn't casual.
Yeah.
But it's because for him, it's this, I'm now out of work mode and I'm into my home and my relaxed mode. And it's the same thing. So still get dressed. And for me, that's usually a Henley and a pair of jeans. And most of the time I don't even have shoes on, but I still at least get dressed to the point where I have had days where I take too long at the gym and I don't have a chance to shower and I'm trying to do client calls and I've thrown on a hat and I've got on just like a ratty t-shirt, and you just feel like you're off your game. And so whether it's you're in your pajamas or your gym clothes or anything else, and irrespective of whether or not you're actually talking to people doing a video conference or you're just trying to bang your workout, it's that internal mindset as far as, am I in work mode or am I still in like post-workout or post-sleep mode or something else like that? Yeah. So get dressed is the first.
Yeah, that makes. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
No, sorry. There was a delay there, and I didn't realize you were going to number 2. But you did say you would go into 2, so go into 2.
Let me go into 2. Come on. Number 2, keep exercising. Or if you weren't doing it before, start exercising. And I know, again, this is one of those arenas where I'm really spoiled because a lot of you guys have to do body weight workouts. And thankfully, every fitness influencer in everywhere on every platform is created awesome body weight only programs. And there are tons of them that you can find out and go do. I've got a full home gym, and that's where I've been working out for the last 8 months anyway. And so my physical training hasn't had to change all that much. Although I will say that taking advantage of the fact that it's spring, and if you can get outside and even just walk, or you're doing running or biking or swimming or whatever it is that you can do that's still social distancing, and sorry, you're in LA and you're going to get arrested for that, but for the rest of us, that's not the case. But really, as much as you can get outside and get sunlight and do some exercise that way, it does so much for your hormones. It does so much for your mindset. And then you kind of have to set a schedule to do that. Am I going to work out in the mornings? Am I going to work out in the afternoons? What am I going to do to be able to make this work? And then you give yourself a definitive time. And so it helps from that routine perspective just as much as it helps with the mental and the physical and all the other perspectives as well.
Yeah, for sure. That's been a big thing. I remember like the first couple of weeks where it disrupted kind of our schedule, not working out as much. And it was just like feeling so kind of depressed and And just, like, it makes a huge, especially getting outside for me. Like I always go to the park and there's a hiking trail and a soccer field, and I like bring a sandbag and I go and work out at the park, and that's what I like to do. But yeah, I mean, not like you said, everybody's got some sort of body weight thing they're promoting on social media right now or whatever. It's like, you don't need all the whistles and bells. If you don't have a gym, just get moving, I think, is a good idea. No, there's
you might need all the whistles and kettlebells though.
It's true. Man,
I've got a group of guys that are in. I have a kind of a fatherhood mastermind or an online group that I'm a part of, and we've been focusing this month on our physical stuff and basically our exercise and how we're doing that ourselves, how we're leading our families that way. And it's been really cool to see a lot of these guys who prior to quarantine and everything else were a little bit more lackadaisical and a little bit more passive about their workouts, have now like converted rooms in their home into a gym, and they're building benches and squat racks just out of wood that they've been able to go pick up at like Home Depot or whatever. But there's this added incentive of, I need to be able to feel like I've got something that I'm in control of in my life. I can't be in control of all these other things, but now I can at least be in control of my fitness. Whereas before I've been able to push that off because I've got all these other things that I'm worried about or anything else.
For sure. Yeah. That's super awesome. Yeah. I've noticed too, where I've been like, normally I'm trying to bang out something before I got to get to work or whatever, but just taking more time on it. So my routine has changed a little bit, but like I can allot for that time to take the time to do that. And I like it. I like being outside and stuff. And there's something about being in the sunlight, I think. I don't know if there's any science behind that, but being in the sunlight for me, it's like, oh, I feel so much better.
Yes. I don't care if it's bro science. I'm going to take it too. Yeah.
Hey, if it's a placebo effect, it's still working on your brain, right? Yeah. That's great. So what are some things that people can do that they've got all this time on their hands now? What should they be doing with some of that time? Is there anything that they could take advantage of with that?
Yeah, get better at your style. Hire me and I'll teach you how to. No, no, but really, now is the perfect time to be doing self-development stuff.
Yeah.
Right. And I love that you have, just like we see in almost everything else, there's now this bifurcation of people who are like, quarantine and chill, or this is now my time that I can go into monk mode and I'm going to come out of this with a side hustle and I'm going to be in better shape and my wife and I are going to have a better relationship and I'm going to be a better father and I'm going to have, like, there's so many different things that you can start to work on. And so now is the perfect time to basically figure out what that is. What is the thing that you've always been holding back on? Maybe it is a side hustle. Maybe it is building a social media presence. Maybe it's writing that book. Maybe it's getting in better shape. Maybe it's finally, maybe you shouldn't be tackling, relationship issues with your spouse right now. But, there's so many things. There's
nowhere to go.
So many of us, exactly, right? There's no escape after that. But so many things that we all procrastinate. And again, one of the big benefits to this is the same thing that we talked about with fitness. So much of our lives, it's just out of our control right now. Yeah. And so the more that you can get control of something, I was really grateful. So we're not Catholic, but we decided we were going to do Lent this year because the idea of sacrifice and stuff like that is really good. And the two of the things that we had decided to do for Lent was I was going to intermittent fast every day until 3:00, and we were only going to have sugar on Sundays, and that was basically it. And with all the chaos and everything else that was going on around us, and the fact that my business was going in weird directions, and it was so unknown, there was something for me that was so satisfying about being able to root in, but I can still control if I'm going to eat before I decided I was going to eat today. Or I'm still in control of whether or not I'm going to give in and I'm going to consume this sugar because I really, really want to, even though I said I wasn't going to do it on Sundays. And so having some sense of control and doing that through whatever it is that you want to work on to improve yourself is such a good way to not just take advantage of the fact that you've got all this downtime, but to come out of it better, because we are going to come out of it. You can decide if you're going to come out of it better or come out of it worse. And then really just set yourself up to make big changes so that this ends up being a cool catalyst as opposed to this absolute, you're getting hobbled at the knees because of what's gone on for the last few weeks.
Yeah, definitely. I also like to, in your video, you were talking about kind of setting the tone kind of for your family and stuff, that idea of not letting the kind of fear and anxiety kind of take over your life. And that's kind of falls in line with what you're just talking about, where it's like you could decide how you're going to interpret this whole thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it is. You're the one who sets the tone, period. Right? It's just the nature of how it runs, and that's politically incorrect and whatever. But you as the dad, you're the one who gets to set the tone. And if everybody sees you as freaking out and fearful and you're irritable and you're stressed out, then that's the vibe that your whole home is going to be in. Or if everybody sees you as being complacent and it's like, well, yeah, we don't, we'll watch more TV, we'll do more screen time, we can just hang out in our PJs all day, we're going to order in more takeout or whatever, then that's the thing that's going to be what is their norm that's established for them too. And this is not the only time in our lives that we're going to deal with crisis. It may be that most of them are on a more micro level. It's probably likely that we're going to deal with more of them on more of a macro level. And so if you can set the tone for yourself and for your kids that when crises happen, we step up, we act, and we thrive. Think about how good that's going to be for them when they deal with their own mini crises or these big macro ones that they're going to end up facing in the future as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that makes a huge difference. I remember just as a kid, we had this big thing in Canada called in 1998. It was like the big ice storm of 1998. And everybody was without power, and like the grid was down for months in some places. And I just remember, people were freaking out, but my dad had this kind of calm demeanor about it all. Like I never even worried about it. And then I found out later, like all my friends and stuff, all the panic and stuff they were going through, and it's like, well, that was nice to have a dad like that that didn't make us freak out about all of that, because we probably could have died without power in the cold for 2 months.
Seriously, yeah. Especially up there.
Yeah, it's crazy. And
it's a perfect example. Your kids, my kids are aware because they don't get to hang out with their friends. But emotionally, they're oblivious to what's going on in the world around them right now. It sucks that they don't get to play with their friends. It's annoying, and we're trying to teach them about responsibility. But my kids don't feel this chronic sense of ennui or fear or panic or anything else. They're just normal. And that's what you should do. And I love that your dad gave you that, because that's what we should do for our kids, is be able to give them as much of that normalcy as we can. Yeah,
for sure. And talking about your kids, how's homeschooling going? I know you were doing this beforehand, but what about people that now suddenly have to start homeschooling and they've never done it before?
Yeah. So the first thing that I'll say, and take this with whatever legal grain of salt or whatever you need to, but throw out all the stuff that your kids' teachers are giving them and everything, because they're all gonna move on to the next grade anyway. And most areas have been told that this is it for the school year.
Yeah.
The best thing that we can do, and again, same thing, you get task oriented, right? For us, school lasts most of the time about an hour. When the kids are really having a hard time with it, and you have to just say, okay, well, you can't leave the table until you get this job done or anything else. And sometimes it takes 3. But for the most part, school lasts for an hour. It's an hour and a half. And that's the actual regimented curriculum of we're learning math or we're learning reading and writing or stuff like that. But more importantly than that, school is also always happening. One thing that you can do that's so good for your kids, because how often do you hear young kids, especially from the age of 3 to 6, what's the most common question they ask? Why? All the time. Why? How come? Why does this work? Right? We're naturally very curious. We are autodidacts by nature.
Yeah.
And it sucks that school, it kills that out of us to the point where learning becomes a chore. It becomes this thing that we don't want to do. It becomes this thing that we hate. And so if you can take your kids' natural desire to want to know why, and you let them lead and you just follow on that, and you go down those rabbit holes with them, especially because now we've got so many resources that are available to us. If your kids want to know how crayons are colored. Watch YouTube videos about that. You know, what's the difference between how they make red ones and orange ones or different things? And then they're going to ask questions. Okay, well, what's it made of? What's wax? And then you can watch videos about that, or you can go down Reddit, rabbit holes or anything. Like, we have so many tools available to us that your kids, let them nerd out and go as deep as they want to on these things, and then do it with them, because a lot of this stuff is stuff that you're not going to know either. You know, one of the things that I've been doing with my son for the last month, he's 6, and I want him to be introduced to more stories of heroism, because a lot of the podcasts and the stories that they listen to, especially because we've got 3 girls, are stuff that they're a little bit more girly.
Yeah.
And so my son, we got this great book that was all the Greek myths and legends. And we learned about the original Greek gods and all these other sub-gods, and Hercules and Theseus and Jason and the Argonauts and all this stuff. And it's really fun that, one, my son wants to dive even deeper in on this stuff, and it's really interesting and fascinating to him. And then 2, I'm looking at this going, okay, I know that these are really kind of watered down kids versions. And so now I'm doing more research on this myself because I'm interested in it. And how do I tie this into my own stuff? And then we can both come at it from our own different directions. And so it's reawakening some of my own natural curiosity in me as well. And it's all just because my son, when I asked him what he wanted to learn about, that was, stories of heroes and stuff like that, he was interested in the Disney movie Hercules. And so it starts to build out and expand from there. And so let them lead, but don't just let them do it on their own. Do it with them.
Yeah.
And it's so much fun. It's so much fun to get to do it that way.
Yeah. That's great. I just remember as a kid thinking, like, school seemed like such a missed opportunity a lot of the time, at least when you're really young. My dad always used to complain that he used to think that homework was robbing us of, like, our family time and that development and that kind of growing as that it would take, you're at school all day and you come home and you've got 4 hours of work to do, and it's stuff that you're probably not ever going to use again.
Seriously.
Right.
And it's so cool that, like, people are in this stage now where, like you said, they could learn whatever they want to do, and they've got this time, and you could kind of guide them through that. But I would have loved that as a kid. I don't know if you know much about, like, the Enneagram or if it means anything to you, but I'm like, my personality is just somebody that is very into investigating things. Mm-hmm. And so the internet is like the best and worst thing for me, because I can spend days learning about whatever weird niche thing that I'm interested in. But it'd be great for kids, though.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
That's awesome. All right, Donovan. I know Donovan. Donovan is there looking for those of you who are listening to the podcast. Donovan is all dapper in his tuxedo. I know you had a couple of style questions. We'll shift gears here and talk to the expert about style. Why are you wearing that tuxedo, Donovan?
Well, it's kind of a daily uniform for me. I try to, at least go a little bit casual every day with the tuxedo. But no, actually, it's funny. I'm actually here at my family's home in Kansas City, and I actually graduated in this tuxedo. I went to a high school where they did that, and, like, you buy it for prom and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. Anyways, I can see why in a la Downton Abbey, they used to have valets who would brush, like, the top of the tuxedo when you put it on, because it's inevitably gathered a lot of dust. But anyways, yeah. So any excuse I can wear the tuxedo, I just decided, we'll break it out. But
that it still fits.
It's a good thing and a bad thing, because like I said, like the shoulders are so freaking wide that I get a little self-conscious about, about these shoulder pads that I'm wearing.
It's just got a good 90s vibe to it. That's fine.
Yeah, exactly. Why not? But Tanner, I was going to ask you, I'm always, like, looking at style guides and stuff for the years. And obviously when this is all over, guys are going to be interested in kind of what's kind of coming around the corner in terms of style. But I'm always interested in hair. I was wondering if you had any interest, opinions on, like, where men's hair is at these days. Because I Google it all. Like, I Google it whenever I go to get a haircut, mm-hmm. but I see the most ridiculous hairstyles most of the time. I mean, It's like it's like the first thing that comes up. It looks like something out of, pre-revolutionary France. So anyways, I wanted to see what you had to say about that.
Well, and that's a fun question, because this is what happens a lot when you look up anything related to trends or fashion or anything else like that. And it's one of the reasons why I make the distinction of, I teach guys how to dress stylishly. I don't teach guys fashion or anything else, because trying to be able to predict what's coming down the pike, and especially when you look at these big, tastemakers and these influencers and these avant-garde shows and anything else like that, it's never actually about what's going to be happening. It's more about shifting our Overton window, our aesthetic Overton window, into, well, that looks really extreme, but if we dial it back to like 4 or 5 as opposed to level 10, then all of a sudden that looks pretty mild in comparison, even though we're only at a level 1 or a 2 right now. Right. And so it's this way to kind of get us acclimated to what the extreme looks like and make things look easier. But as far as, what haircuts are coming down and what's going to be popular, this is one of the things that's really interesting about the time in which we live, is that you will see everything. I see right-wing bodybuilders on Twitter that are doing mullets again, because it's something that is, very like leaning into the 80s jock aesthetic and everything else. Right. You see guys who are going with, crazy big pompadours still, that's been a thing forever. You see more military, like high and tight cuts. Like, you see anything and everything, because depending on what the context of your environment is, are you a professional? Are you on the East Coast, on the West Coast? Are you in the United States? Are you young? Are you old? Are you whatever? You basically, there's nothing that's off limits. If you wanted to do the full on, like, go gutter punk again, and you do the giant Liberty spikes that are held up with Elmer's glue and egg yolks and they're purple and red, you can find places in New York or in London where you can still get away with haircuts like that. And so we're moving away in hairstyles and clothing styles and everything else like that. We're moving away from the way that the world used to be, even when we were kids and growing up, let alone way before that, where there were these big mainstream kind of homogenous cultural trends that would dictate where things would go, because everybody's just broken up into little tribes now, and you can do whatever you want depending on what your tribe is.
It's crazy that it's like
so
that.
So throw out that mullet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My wife and I were talking about that. It's like it's really anything goes now. There's no like sort of mainstream, like quote unquote fashion or style. They're just, people just kind of seem to, fit into where they fit in. And it seems even if you're outside of that tribe, you just kind of accept it as, oh, that's their thing. Like, it's not weird. Right. I remember as a kid, I was a little, punk rock kid. And the first day I wore Chuck Taylors to my high school, I got made fun of like nothing else. Like, oh, look at those shoes. And it was like, and that was considered extreme. Like, no kids were wearing Chuck Taylors at that specific time in history. And I don't feel like
that's about as like entry level punk rock as it gets.
Yeah, I know. It's completely entry level. And now it's like, I don't think that would happen. I don't know. I'm not in school, but I don't think something like that would happen maybe anymore in school. But I don't know.
Well, a lot of guys make the mistake of thinking then that it doesn't matter. You can wear whatever you want.
Yeah.
And that's not the case too. The problem is that you now just have these smaller pockets with much more contextualized symbols that are being sent based on what you wear. But it's still just as important that you understand what those signals are, how to be able to send them the right way, how to not overstep or understep or anything else. Because if you do send these signals through your clothing that I actually don't belong to this group, or that I don't understand how your social hierarchy works or anything, there are still consequences. It may not be big and mainstream, but there are still consequences that will affect your income, your family, your self-perception, your dating prospects, everything else.
Yeah, of course. And same thing with motor. Go ahead, Donovan.
Oh, no. Go ahead. I was going to bridge into
make a joke about something I read about a guy wearing a Sons of Anarchy motorcycle jacket and getting beat up by some biker gang.
Yeah. An easy example of that. It's like, you got to earn the right to wear one. Yeah. You have it. So.
Sending all the wrong signals to everybody when you do that.
Yeah. But I can wear whatever I want.
Yeah. I was going to ask Tanner, who are your I guess who would you say is sort of your immortal style icon when it comes down to it? Like, I was talking to somebody about this recently, and I mean, I think of like Steve McQueen, Paul Newman, like guys who, you kind of look at and you kind of said like, okay, that's like a style that either you were, drawn to from the get-go, or that you just see as sort of a, sort of, it just immortal in its the way it lives on.
Okay, let me think about that, because so many guys, especially to look at the Steve McQueens, the Cary Grants, these guys that come from this kind of golden age of aesthetics and masculinity and all this other stuff, and they try to replicate those looks, and they don't work anymore. It's cosplay now. If you try and dress like it's the 40s or the 60s or whatever else, you just look like you're wearing a costume, especially because you're not that high status. You're not these guys. Your life isn't that cool. You're not that popular. And so it looks even more like you're just wearing a costume. But there is something to be said for you when you see some of these looks. I think Steve McQueen is a really good example where you know that the look wouldn't work well today, but you can still see it and it still looks good. Whereas you look at a lot of stuff from the 80s and you just go, I can't believe we did stuff like that. Like, what were we thinking, right? And you knew it was super popular and it was super trendy at the time. But because a lot of guys, they try and get this idea of timeless style. And that's what they see is they set up these kind of old school icons as being timeless. But again, even McQueen, if he were in his 30s today, wouldn't be dressing like he did in the 60s. He'd be wearing something entirely different now, right? And so it's not necessarily the clothing itself that we gravitate to. It's the emotion, the attitude. We feel when we see it, the attitude that's portrayed that's coming across from them. And so it's the communication level that we look at and go, that's awesome. And that's the kind of stuff that's timeless and forever. And so for me, if I think about how that works for me, this is going to be such a stupid and obscure reference, but there was this pop punk band that I remember listening to in my 20s called Midtown. And the lead singer, you remember Midtown? Yeah. Gabe Saporta went on to do Cobra Starship.
Oh, really?
His whole, synth band and everything else like that. And there's something about it. I think part of it is because there's the nostalgia component of it for me. In fact, I've still got one of their posters from 2002 that I need to put up in my office, because I look at the style and it's these bad mohawks and these really there was literally in 2002, 2003 when you couldn't buy skinny jeans. So we wore girl pants because that was the only buy that was skinny enough.
I did that
And so
too.
They had this kind of boot cut bell bottom look that just looks awful now, but I still see these pictures from back then. And it's that same kind of attitude that when I resonate with, it's like, man, these guys are so cool. There's something about this that just sticks with me. And I could still go back and watch one of their music videos today and go, there's no way I would ever wear that now, but they still look so awesome. And part of it is because of what my emotional state was and what I thought was aspirational and everything else. And so that's probably the best answer I can come up with as far as something that even after 20 years, it still resonates with me for some reason. Yeah.
That's really cool. I like that having a reference like that's out of the box, because you are really talking about what it conveys as opposed to what it was. Because you would never go out looking like that today.
No way. It's really not that cool now, but because based on where I was and what my response to it was just awesome. And that was so much of my style journey really kind of solidified after trying to dress like these guys that I wanted to be like.
There's a guy that I don't know if you've come across him on YouTube. He has a YouTube channel called, his name's Ian McKenty, I think it is. And he has a channel called Punk Rock MBA. And he have you seen his stuff when he goes through style of the scene stuff?
Old skate punk and everything. Yeah. And
it's so cool the some of the stuff that he analyzes. There's one thing where he's talking about Dickie shorts, and he traced it back to gangs in LA, and here are these suburban kids up north that are dressing like gang members in LA in a punk band.
Yep. I love that kind of stuff because there's history to all of that. I remember so much of the skinny girl or the skinny pants or the girl jeans started with the BMX scene that I was really involved with, because it was a way to baggy stuff would get caught in your chain. It would get caught in your chain and on your sprocket. And so you would wear skinny stuff. Yeah. And then those were the same guys who would be going to shows, and punk rock, especially the pop punk and that kind of emo movement and everything was the proto social justice. And so you had a lot of these bands, I remember the Blood Brothers were really androgynous in the way that they looked, and they were wearing girl clothes and everything. And it was all part of this rebellion against we hate the jocks and all this stuff that just seems so silly and superficial now. But so many of these styles came about as a result of the combination of all these attitudes and these different tribes and how they all bled in and blended together and all that. And then it starts to take off and become more mainstream. Because now, I mean, I remember getting just mercilessly teased for wearing girl pants when I was in my late teens, early 20s. Yeah. And now, you still have like the roughest, like blue collar guys that say, I would never wear skinny jeans. But it's fairly ubiquitous at this point where you just kind of say, it's not for me, but I see why guys do it for a lot of people now.
Yeah. Sometimes I wish I could wear more skinny jeans, but I got huge calves. I can't pull them over my calves.
I'll trade them. I'll go for it. And I don't wear skinny stuff anymore. It's just slim, but I'll take an extra 2 inches off your calves.
Yeah. And it's just a genetic thing. Like that's the thing. Like we were looking at a picture of me when I was like 3 and like my calves were still proportional to so I'll never be able to wear skinny jeans, but I was able to wear girls' pants because they were flared at the bottom.
Yes, right? The bell bottom flare. Yeah. Oh,
for years I used to only wear boot cut. Now I just buy straight. So that's kind of what fits me now. But that's funny. Do you have any more questions, Donovan, about style?
I think that's I
cannot answer for you, right?
No, that's actually the answer that I feel like that's the conclusion that I've found is most universal and true, is the fact that it's usually the fact that somebody can put on what style considered the style of the time, but if they don't really feel good in it, and if they don't really believe it, they're not going to look very good in it. They're going to look insecure. They're going to look like they don't really fit. And I think that's the thing that I've learned most when I've been putting together my style over the years, is that if you feel good in it and if you're projecting the attitude that you want to project, it's not going to work all the time, but most of the time you may end up having a hit where you put on something like that isn't necessarily considered in, but because you really feel it, people are going to look at it and be like, oh yeah, that actually works with him, Yep. So yeah, that's I think the best advice you can give to people is you got to feel good about it, and you have to sort of have the right attitude when you wear it.
Yeah, I'll give you there's a Venn diagram that I use to teach this. It's 3 C's, because you need to have confidence is absolutely one of them, and it's arguably one of the most important ones. I remember when I was first starting my coaching business, I would put guys in what was stylish at the time, and then 6 months later, they were back to wearing what they were before we started working together for that exact reason. Like, yeah, I mean, I guess I looked more like I should have been on the cover of GQ, but I felt like an idiot. I felt like a monkey wearing this stuff, and people thought that I was weird, and so it made me really uncomfortable. Whereas good style is supposed to really boost your confidence. There's supposed to be this sense of congruence, and so confidence is one. Context is another one that's huge, right? Because you could take the tuxedo that you've got on right now, and it's fun and it's tongue in cheek to do it with quarantine and stuff like that. But if you were to wear that to work out, then 1, it's going to affect your confidence. And 2, even if it didn't affect your confidence, people are going to look at you as this weird socially obtuse guy who just doesn't quite get it. And so it doesn't matter how much you think you're killing it. But, and obviously that's a really strong extreme of just what's this guy doing? But the context is a big component of it too, right?
Yeah. Yeah. What's funny is that actually brings up a good thing that I recently, before, quarantine, I was going to the gym quite a bit. Uh-huh. And this new trend, a lot of guys are working out in jeans. And it's
really,
yeah.
I have not seen this. I wonder if this is a KC thing.
I didn't. Well, it's not. It wasn't in KC. It was in LA.
Interesting.
It was really funny because I love military history and stuff, and I know the SEALs used to always do stuff in blue jeans back in the 60s, but that was more out of utility. They would wear them in water and stuff, and they were just tough. They wouldn't rip or anything like that. But these guys at the gym, they were working out on their jeans and stuff, and I think for a few of them, I got the sense that maybe it was just like a convenience thing. Like they didn't want to change into workout clothes. Like they literally just wanted to pop into the gym. But for a couple of other guys, I felt like, wow, they're really like going off of some trend or something.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's
Top
something
Gun vibe. They're going back to the volleyball.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, it might even be something in the gay community or something. I'm not entirely sure. This was like one of the Gold's Gym in Hollywood. So
right.
Like that community is kind of prominent there. But it was a bizarre trend.
Example though, right?
Yeah.
Because enough people do it, and then it creates this context where you're one of us. And if you were to do that in your gym now, or if I were to do that in the gym here in Utah, it's like, this is weird. Why are you wearing jeans in here? Yes. Yeah, and so that's a perfect example of that context. Yeah. And then the third one is competence, because you have to actually be able to understand aesthetics and put things together in a way that works. And so, a really good example of this is like Jim Halpert from The Office, right? He wears stuff that's appropriate within the context, and he's equally confident throughout the whole seasons, but his stuff fits better and it looks better as you get into later seasons. And so it sends a better message as far as, I'm not just here begrudgingly, I've got more stuff going on. And so there's that competence aspect that comes in with it as well.
That's a great illustration. That's a really good example. Yeah.
Speaking of Jim from The Office, that's where you stole your tuxedo idea, right?
Yeah. Well, actually, it occurred to me after I put it on, because there is a gag in The Office where I think they come up with dress code for The Office or something. And as a joke to get back at Dwight, he wears a tuxedo, but it's the day that Idris Elba, like the new kind of hard-nosed boss, comes in. And this is a perfect, this works
perfect
totally
example.
with what you're saying.
Yeah,
he goes up to introduce himself to Idris Elba because he knows that he's important in the hierarchy. And the first thing Idris Elba says is he's like, "Why are you wearing a tuxedo?" And like Jim tries to explain it to him, but because Idris Elba isn't from he's not from The Office,
exactly.
And he's also personality-wise doesn't really have a sense of humor. It works against Jim in a big way the rest of the episode.
Perfect example. And it doesn't matter how confident he was feeling when he got in there that morning. Yep.
Oh man, that's so
there we go.
All right. Well, Tanner, if people want to find you and get more of your advice, where can they go?
So the best way in the areas that I'm the most active are on Twitter and Instagram. You can follow me there. It's at Tanner Guzy. So TANNERGUZY. Just like we did in this conversation, I talk about basically anything self-development related: fatherhood, entrepreneurship, masculinity, religion, style, all of it. My main bread and butter as far as the business is style and stuff like that. But just like you guys are, and just like I assume most of the listeners are, one-dimensional people are boring. It's so much more fun to engage with people who talk about how all of this is interrelated. And so those are the two most active platforms you can find me on. If you want to get more about just purely the style stuff, then you can go to masculine-style.com and check out a lot of the articles that are there. I even have a style quiz that will help you guys get pointed in the right direction, which I know we talked about on the last episode. And if you want to see more tips on that quarantine video, you can look me up on YouTube. Same thing, Tanner Guzy there. And I dove a little bit deeper on some advice that I could give you guys on how to survive family quarantine on a video. It's actually my most recent video, so you can go check that one out.
Definitely. We'll be sure to link all those in the show notes too. And thanks so much, man, for doing this again. We'll have to have you on after all this is over. And
I love the show. I'd love to come back on again. You guys are a blast. So thanks for having me on again.
Thanks again, man.
This is great, man. Thanks.
Stay safe. This part of the show is brought to you by Phoenix Shaving, makers of the most excellent aftershaves, shaving soaps, and all things traditional man. One of my favorite products of theirs are their aftershaves. Phoenix Shaving intentionally blurs the lines between traditional aftershave and classic cologne. Each batch of aftershave cologne is created by using traditional perfuming methods, giving the wearer a high dose of quality skin food matched by the staying power of berry white. Now, I tell you, this stuff is amazing. It'll make your skin feel great after a shave, and the alum and menthol just removes all irritation and razor bumps. They have classic barber scents and even more creative soap and aftershave fragrances. Like, my favorite is the Tombstone scent. It smells like leather, tobacco, and gunpowder. Pretty unique. So ditch those vials of chemicals you buy at the drugstore every month and grab some artisan soap and aftershaves from Phoenix Shaving. Go to gentlemanscofflaw.com/shave to help support the show and get some fantastic manly grooming products. Phoenix Shaving. Shaving outside the box. All right. Great guest as usual. It's fun to be able to say great guest as usual that we've been around it long enough to have people back now, and people still want to come back.
He's a winner. I like Tanner a lot. He's just a Renaissance man if there ever was one.
It's true,
and also a bit of a rebel.
Bit of a Renaissance man. Also, that segment brought to you by the word of the day, autodidact. I
completely forgot the word.
Yeah.
Because I stored it away in the back of my head.
Yeah.
When he said autodidact, I was like, or autodidact, I was like, what is that? Like I had like a vision in my head of like a duck for some reason. I don't know why. But I was like, oh yeah, duck's an autodidact.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's true. But yeah, when he said that, I was like, wow, this is an educated person that we're talking to.
Did you?
He may be above.
Did you remember
level above?
Maybe.
What? Maybe he's a special guest.
He is. Do you remember what that means? Because I had to look it up at the break.
I have not. I have not looked it up. I just left that image of the duck just in my head as a screensaver.
We just like, oh yeah, sure, yeah, whatever you say. Say
yeah, totally.
Tanner, I don't want to call him on it. So it meant
it's also fun being bipedal as well.
Bipedal, yeah, bipedal. So it's a self-taught person.
Okay,
makes sense.
Yeah, I'd say I'm an autodidact of sorts.
Yeah.
I can walk and talk and chew gum at the same time.
Well, there you go. That's what qualifies you as an autodidact. You know what time it is?
Mm.
It's time to round. Why am I? It's time.
Wow.
It's this day drinking that's getting.
I just queued you up for that. You totally. You're clearly not an autodidact.
It's time to announce the winner of last month's giveaway, and the winner is. Doug.Richardson13. Thank you for entering the giveaway.
Doug Richardson the 13th?
Yeah, the 13th. Yeah.
That's a very long line of Doug Richardsons.
Very long line of them. You're going to get the Agartha aftershave cologne and as well as a little Gentleman's Scofflaw koozie. You can put your simpler times in. And we'll send that out to you in the coming weeks. And we've got another giveaway for this month. We are giving away, it's called the Garden of Bali aftershave and cologne.
Bali, very exotic.
Also, this is a special edition, or not special edition, but it's out of production. So this is a rarity.
It's a collector's item.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it looks like it's got, I was able to find a review on a website here, but it's supposed to have it says, an all-day unfolding of untethered freshness and tropical night mystique, manly, alluring, and curious.
Nice.
So it's got a citrus marine bouquet with top notes of lime, lemon, grapefruit, orange blossom, and sea salt.
You know what? This sounds like the perfect scent for summer.
It does.
I'm just gonna say it. You throw on a Hawaiian shirt and splash a little bit of that on your mug, and I think you're gonna be attracting all the ladies.
Of course, of course. So if you want to join that, go to our Instagram, link in the show notes, and just read how you can enter in on that. Again, of course, courtesy of Phoenix Shaving.
And when you win, let us know how you feel about it.
Yeah. Take a
give us a little review of yourself, how it's changed your life.
Exactly. If people want to support the show, Donovan, how can they do that?
Always give me the hard questions. So you can support us by buying merch. As Jordan said, there are beer koozies, and there are flip-flops, and there are mugs and beer glasses and all sorts of wonderful things via the website. Also, you can listen to us on most platforms. I don't think we're not on my favorite platforms, SoundCloud and Google Podcasts.
We are on Google Podcasts.
Okay. Well, that's all that counts,
just
because
not
that's
SoundCloud.
the only one I'm listening to these days. But yeah, we're on Google Podcasts. We're on Spotify, right?
Uh-huh.
We're on that's the most that matters. We're on YouTube. We're on we also have a Twitter account. We have Instagram and all that good stuff. So you can like us on Instagram, follow us on Twitter. You can listen to our podcasts. You will get something out of it, because we are a wealth of knowledge and charm and class.
Sages of unconventional wisdom here at the
Indeed,
Gentleman's Scofflaw podcast. You all right?
Yeah,
you look much less fancy sneezing in your tuxedo.
That's when my true masculinity comes out. That's when the rogue comes out, when I just have to absolutely just let it rip. But yeah, I think those are the main ways that you can support us. I think, unless I'm forgetting something, Jordan.
That's
please
it. That's it.
know.
Patreon too. There's always Patreon, and then all those ways.
Patreon, yes. Like I said, it's a tit for tat. You know, we work very hard to give you everything.
Yeah.
So we don't expect anything back. But if you happen to find it in your hearts from the bottom of your glasses.
Oh, you sound like Tiny Tim.
I just need some script. Actually, no, I was about to steal a character from Bobby Moynihan there.
Oh no!
That would have been cool. Don't want Bobby Moynihan coming to my house in the middle of the night.
No, that would.
God bless us, everyone.
All right. So Donovan, you are a gentleman in Scofflaw, my friend.
As are you.
You guys are gentlemen in Scofflaws, my friends, and you guys have a great week.
This has been the Gentleman's Scofflaw podcast. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Subscribe on iTunes or your favorite podcatcher. Visit us on the interwebs at gentlemanscofflaw.com.
Captain says his ice on the river. We ain't getting home if we don't break through. So damn cold, I can't help but shiver. Rise and shine, we got work to do.